Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
Today on CityCast Boise, old buildings are coming down all over Boise, but something invisible and dangerous may be going up in their place. Contractors are worried about it. Other states regulate it. So why is Idaho ignoring it? It's Monday, May 5th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Reporter Nick Rosenberger from the Idaho Statesman is back with a story about the hidden dangers of Boise's growth. Welcome back, Nick.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to be here.
Boise's skyline is changing fast, but it sounds like there are some potential risks when a building or home is getting demolished. What kind of risks are there?
There is definitely a few risks when you knock a home down, and you can see that if you wander around downtown or if you walk around the north end or the bench where you might see a demolition. Obviously, it kicks up some dust, and there's some concerns about that. And that's mostly the focus of what this story that I wrote was about, is the dangers in this dust, especially for homes that have things like lead or asbestos in them.
And is this demo dust just, one of the unfortunate side effects of growth, or are we potentially setting ourselves up for what could be a public health issue or maybe even a crisis?
Yeah, so I think there's a safe way to do it, and there's a way to do it with no rules or regulations, which in some cases there's very little rules or regulations when it comes to these demolitions, and when there's no oversight, no enforcement on certain aspects, then yeah, it could pose a risk to community health and to folks' well-being.
Did you choose to focus on this story because there are more demolitions happening than before, or are we just maybe more aware of the risks now and the fact that we maybe don't have as much regulation on this as we should?
Yeah, so great question. So as part of my duties as the Idaho Statesman's Growth and Development reporter is I look at building permits every day. So I go through their system. I'm looking at what's being built, and I also look at what's coming down. And I do see a lot of demolition permits. Has it gone up since Boise's new zoning code went into effect? I can't exactly remember if the number is on that. But I do see a significant amount of demolition permits come through. And I do think that, the Treasure Valley and Idaho and Boise and Meridian is growing a lot. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of people moving here. There's a lot of construction going on. And so it might be a part of it is that we're noticing it more simply because we're all hyper attuned to all of this growth and change happening around us. So I think it might be a little bit of both, and not having any regulation there when it comes to home demolitions with asbestos in them, when there's only one home, I think it should be something that we're paying attention to and looking at.
So I really want to dive into the specifics of that. So if somebody is only demolishing one home or a certain amount of building that might have asbestos, are there no regulations on that? Like, how easy is it to get permission for demolishing a home in Boise, or what is the oversight on this process like?
Yeah, so I guess I'll backtrack a little bit to how I found this story. So first, there's some buildings in Southeast Boise that were slated to be demolished and rebuilt with, I believe it was apartments or townhouses, and it was right next to a couple schools. And some neighbors were concerned that those demolitions could spread asbestos or lead to those kids. They were built in, I believe, 1940s or 1950s, well before asbestos and lead was banned in most construction materials. And so we wanted to look into that and figure out what was there. For this specific project, it likely would be covered by something called the National Emission Standards for Hazardous Air Pollutants, or NESHAP for short. So to answer your question, what rules are there for home demolitions. Basically, NESHAP is the standard. That is the EPA's kind of ruling. And for any commercial project or infrastructure project, so say you're putting in a highway and you need to demolish some homes, that would fall under NESHAP. But if you're just demolishing one home, two homes, three homes, or four homes, those don't fall under NESHAP at all. And so there's no air quality testing, no soil testing, no groundwater testing, no notifications to neighbors that the building has asbestos in it. None of those are requirements at all. If you're demolishing something next to just a single home with asbestos in it, if you're demolishing it next to a hospital or a school or a cancer treatment center, there's no special requirements at all. And this gap, a lot of folks are saying this they call it like a regulatory void, or this, just like one contractor told me, there's a gaping hole in Idaho's laws. A lot of states are supposed to fill this, or cities are supposed to fill this hole. The EPA doesn't want to tell homeowners what to do with their homes. That's kind of a Reagan era kind of thing, that they didn't want to tell homeowners how to like live their lives. But Idaho, the city of Boise, a lot of folks don't have any rules or regulations at all to address these home demolitions. And some of this comes down to permits as well. So in Boise, you do have to apply for a demolition permit, but it's quite easy. You basically will submit an application to the city of Boise. You'll show kind of the materials that you want to remove, and that could be reused and recycled. But you don't have to test for asbestos. You don't have to show anyone that there's asbestos present. And the city of Boise told me that permits are really there more for tracking purposes and for insurance purposes as well. They're focused on liability insurance requirements and basically encouraging or tracking the waste or reuse of materials, but nothing really about asbestos.
What does your mom want for Mother's Day? To feel close to you, so don't forget to give her a call. And a gift that can help you stay connected all year, an Aura digital photo frame. My mom lives in another state, and I don't get to see her as much as I want to. I love sharing the meaningful moments in our lives, though, like my oldest driving with their permit for the first time, or the kids' elaborate blanket forts. I can snap a photo or video and send it straight to her Aura frame. Aura was named Best Digital Photo Frame by Wirecutter, and after using one, I get why. It makes sharing moments with loved ones feel easy and intentional. Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. For a limited time, listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off, plus free shipping on their best-selling Carver Mat frame. That's auraframes.com, promo code CityCast. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
So, Nick, how common is asbestos in Boise homes? Like, it sounds like, if it's pretty common, your neighbor could be demoing their home. You could be living next to this potential asbestos cloud and not even know about it.
So I would say if your home was built before 1989, which is when asbestos was banned, there's probably a good chance that there's asbestos in your home. A lot of homes in Boise and in Idaho are built before that. As you can probably guess, if you go in the north end, there's a lot of old homes here. If you go into the bench, there's also a whole lot of old homes. If you're trying to demolish a house that was built pre-1989, I would say it's probably safe to assume that there's probably asbestos in it. And this is mostly asbestos was used mostly for insulation properties. It's really resistant to heat and fire. And so if you walk into like a commercial building and look up, you might see like sprayed on fireproofing materials. If that building is pre-1989, that's probably asbestos fireproofing.
So it sounds like it's not uncommon in this area, especially, if your home is a little bit older. And everyone's seen those, you might be entitled to compensation if you or someone you love developed mesothelioma after asbestos exposure. But what is the actual risk? Like, how dangerous is asbestos exposure, especially with this demo dust?
Yeah. So asbestos is absolutely dangerous. When you inhale it, it can scar your lungs and lead to lung cancer and mesothelioma. In 2016 alone, there were about 40,000 deaths just from asbestos exposure. That's across the nation. There's no amount of asbestos that's safe. You get even a small amount, and it does increase your risk of lung cancer or harmful effects. And the effects also don't show up for a long time. So you could be exposed to asbestos years ago and then develop mesothelioma or some other health concern from asbestos exposure. So if you demolish a home and asbestos spreads, it's basically staying airborne for who knows how long. It's microscopic. It's going to stay airborne for a very, very long time and spread very, very far. And it's difficult to pinpoint exactly how that might impact the community unless you were to say maybe demolish a home and then 30 years later do tests of everyone that was living around that home demolition for cancer rates, which is a difficult thing to track. And so it's, I guess, difficult to say the impact that these home demolitions could have on you. But I would say it's probably a fair bet that if you demolish a home and some of the asbestos escapes, it's probably, you might breathe it in, you might be affected by it. So yeah, it's a difficult thing to quantify, but I would say it's probably an effect.
I mean, that seems really concerning to me that like my neighbor could, demo their home, demo part of their home. This asbestos and demo dust is airborne. My kids are playing outside and I assume like, oh, they got a permit. They're, my neighbors are nice people and we're all being affected and could have implications in 10, 20, 30 years and just not even be aware of it. Like that seems really concerning to me.
Yeah. And I will note that the kind of the golden rule of demolitions is that you have to spray the site down. And this is meant to like tamp down the dust. So you're spraying it with water, you're making sure that dust kind of like falls down, doesn't spread. So hopefully that is a little bit helpful. Maybe it's not like there's nothing there at all. You have these like, you're supposed to spray these sites down. But obviously it would be pretty hard to water an entire site and make sure that no dust particles ever escape or no asbestos ever escapes. And so I don't know, maybe that's a little bit more helpful. Maybe it's a little less concerning that we have at least that in place.
I mean, the fact that they don't have to test for it still makes me a little nervous about how that process is happening. But when a demolition crew does find asbestos, let's say they did test for it, how is the cleanup supposed to happen?
Yeah. So like I said, they're gonna be watering the site. They're gonna bag up all of the materials in these hazardous waste bags. They could also abate before demolition. So go in and remove all the asbestos and then demo the building. Then they'll truck it out to the landfill, and it has to go through a special process, I believe, at the landfill. But also, if you don't test for asbestos, you can just take it to the landfill, and no one's the wiser that there's even asbestos in those materials. So I guess that's a question of how much asbestos is in the Ada County landfill right now. I don't know. There's probably more than we think.
More than we'd like, probably.
Probably more than we'd like. Yeah. And this is where things are like really interesting for me, at least, is that when you're renovating a home or when you're renovating a room, and you have asbestos in that room. So say you want to remodel your bathroom and your bathroom tiles have asbestos in them. There's a lot of rules that like people follow, to remove that asbestos. So they're basically gonna place that room in an enclosure, like a vacuum sealed area. So none of the asbestos escapes. The workers are going to be wearing full clean suits, gloves, respirators, everything you can imagine to be safe. Like if you remember back during COVID days when you saw those folks in the clean suits and the masks and stuff, it's like that, but probably more intense because they have like actual respirators on and they have air scrubbers that basically zap the asbestos and all of these different things. none of that really exists when you're demoing a home. So it's like when you're remodeling your bathroom, they're a lot more safe than they are if you're just knocking the entire home down, which I think is a really interesting thing to think about. And I guess question, like, why is there so much more oversight for just a simple room remodel than there is for an actual home demolition?
Yeah. And you spoke to some asbestos abatement workers. What did they have to say about the regulations surrounding this issue?
Yeah, they were concerned, to say the least, and not pointing fingers at folks, but it's not an uncommon thing from what they told me. It's not an uncommon thing for folks to not test or to just knock a home down without the proper procedures, or, so for instance, OSHA requires that there's a supervisor on site during a home demolition with asbestos in it. Contractors told me that doesn't really ever happen. No supervisors on the site 24/7. One contractor told me that he knew someone, another contractor, his home caught on fire and it had asbestos in it. And rather than, do the proper things, he figured out that he could just knock it down himself without any kind of repercussions or anything. So he did that. He just knocked it down, trucked the materials out to Ada County landfill. And that was that, and could just build a new house right there. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's uncommon for these kind of things to happen. But it is, again, it would be immensely difficult to track that and like see how much it is happening, especially because a lot of the work being done in cities is not permitted. Like I said, if you want to remodel your bathroom, someone might not apply for a permit for that, even though maybe technically they should. So there's a lot of unpermitted work, and that's something that's just really difficult to track.
Okay, Nick, if this is so dangerous and potentially so widespread, why isn't there more aggressive regulation surrounding demolitions?
That's a great question. I think, in Idaho specifically, we pride ourselves on having a free state and being able to do what we want to do. And, a lot of that means not having regulations or a state that wants to kind of like hinder us from doing what we want to do. I guess it could be like a cultural thing as well. But then again, I feel like Wyoming is the same way. They really pride themselves on being, free and low regulation state, but they still have better enforcement than us.
Wyoming has better regulation of this than we do?
Yeah. One contractor told me that, Wyoming has enforcement over this kind of thing, and Idaho does not. So that's an interesting tidbit for sure.
Very cool. We're very free to get our mesothelioma. That's what freedom feels like.
Of course.
So after finding out all of this information, Nick, what does it tell you about Boise's construction boom and maybe some of our blind spots regarding it?
I think building and all of this stuff is a complicated business. There's all these different things to consider. There's permits, OSHA regulations, there's asbestos and lead, and even the bigger things of how do we finance projects. There's so many different things to unpack with how construction works, that I think, there's probably areas that there are blind spots. And Idaho is growing really, really fast, and maybe we haven't had the time to really notice those issues until now. And if nothing happens, then that's the choice that Idaho wants to make, and that's the road that we want to go down. But I think it doesn't hurt to at least be aware of our blind spots and trying to think about this and as we're building, what other areas are there that we might be missing out on? What are these small details? What are these small little loopholes that people might be taking advantage of that could be putting the wider community at risk?
So if we don't enforce regulations, if we don't take this asbestos demo dust seriously now, what could be the effects for Boiseans in 10, 20, 30 years?
I think it's a really difficult question to answer. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball. And like I said before, it's really difficult to track the impact of this sort of thing, because there's demolitions going on, but you could also get sick from many things. It's not just asbestos. It's not just this. So 20, 30 years from now, I'm not expecting like a ginormous spike in mesothelioma rates. Home demolitions like this have been happening for decades. And so I think if there's an impact, this impact is already here. So I'm not sure we're going to see anything different. If we change things, then maybe we might see lower mesothelioma rates, but there's a million different factors that could influence that as well. So I don't know. I'm not sure what could happen. I think it's good to look at and consider and probably protect folks as best we can.
Well, Nick, thank you so much. This was a concerning but very interesting conversation to have. So thank you so much for breaking it down and for really digging into this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. If you learned something this episode, make sure and tell your friends about the show so they can enjoy it too. We'll be back tomorrow morning with another great local story. See you then.